So part two of week three is on forest regions. So let's start with this. I gotta line it up so it looks good. So we can start with a view of, there we go, global ecological zones. And these are the different zones, and it's all color coded, and it's kind of blurry, but we're going to talk some more about it. So we can talk about the world's forests. And we really need to be acting globally at this point in our natural resource management. But let's start with the forest regions of the United States. There's a lot of different ways to name the forest depending on the use and what organization is doing it. So if we were going to break the United States up into 5 areas, we could say we have a Pacific Coast forest, a Rocky Mountain forest, which extends down through here, the northern forest. Now, I used to work for the Forest Service in the northern forest, so I worked in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and UP of Michigan. That's the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So those were my research areas, and they were different trees than we have here. So that's where I work for the U.S. Forest Service Research Organization. Then we have in here central hardwoods. And then down here, I'll move me over here. We have the southern forests. So what do you think has more trees as far as lumber production? That's a very good question. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So the different methods depend on the purpose of it. There is no one universal method for classifying forests. It depends on the organization that's producing the map and the purpose. So using more than one geographic location to assign a forest region is important just as far as understanding that there's differences. So one way is forest cover. This is done by the Food and Agriculture Organization 2000, and that's canopy or forest cover. So if you look at the world here, you can see the dark green is all forested, the light green is other wooded area, and the rest is other land and water. So that's kind of a good perspective to start with. The forest types in the United States, you are doing an assignment on that for your week 3 assignment, and that is the northern forest, the central, southern bottomland, western, west coast, Alaska, Hawaii, and tropical forest. And what I want you to look at is what trees are in each of those forest areas and what are their uses. So I'll save that for your assignment. The next one is dividing hardwoods and softwoods, and we'll be looking at that definition soon. And a lot more hardwoods in the east and a lot more softwoods in the west. For western forest types, rainfall is less than 16 inches, fewer hardwoods, high commercial value softwoods like our Doug fir, which is used for our 2x4s, and includes the west coast and the western interior, and also eastern forests, more economically important hardwoods, which is used for furniture, including northern, central, southern, and bottomland. So having a good understanding of these different forest types is important. Now, we also want to divide up in the United States, 46% of forest lands are private. So again, I asked this question before. How are we going to manage lands that are privately owned? We'll talk about that. Colorado forest ownership is interesting to look at. Let me scroll that one back up again. And that is of Colorado. The dark green is U.S. Forest Service. The turquoise is BLM. The pink, Rocky Mountain National Park, is National Park Service. There's some Fish and Wildlife Service, and state, tribe, local, and private lands. So you see this all ties into the management of forestry. And then we see another map of just Colorado, which shows us our spruce fir, our lodgepole, our aspen, and etc. So one of my favorite field trips of the year is we're going to go up to Rocky Mountain National Park and study each of these forest types. And last but not least is a pie chart showing of those forest types in the state, what is the largest percent, and that is pinyon juniper in southwest Colorado. Second to mixed, 17% spruce fir, and ponderosa and aspen. So those are the forests we're going to be studying in Colorado. And we'll be talking more about the field trips we're going to be going on, and how these forests grow and what's the ecology of these forests. But next, I'm going to teach you tree identification. So let's get started with that, week 4. Thanks.